You believe that pulling away from people is a warning sign. You believe that if you would rather sit alone with your own thoughts than sit in a crowded room, something inside you has quietly broken. That belief is the first trap, and it is designed to make you doubt the very upgrade that is happening inside your own mind. By the end of this protocol, you will understand exactly why the sharpest, most self-aware people on this planet slowly disappear from the noise of other people, and why that disappearance is not a symptom. It is a checkmate move against a life that was never built for their clarity in the first place. Here is the statement that will make half of you disagree with me immediately. The people who claim they love everyone equally are usually the ones who understand no one deeply. Sit with that. Write it in the comments if it offends you, because it should. Phase 1 of this protocol is recognizing the difference between loneliness and clarity, because your mind will try to convince you they are the same weapon pointed at you. Loneliness is an ache for connection that never arrives. Clarity is silence that finally lets you hear your own voice without static. Solitude, in the language of assertiveness and boundary work, is not the absence of people. It is the presence of undivided attention on your own internal signal. When you stop needing a room full of noise to feel like you exist, you have not lost anything. You have disarmed a dependency that was quietly draining you for years. The trap was never solitude. The trap was mistaking distraction for belonging, and belonging for safety. Most people fill silence because silence forces them to listen to thoughts they have been avoiding. You do the opposite. You walk towards the quiet the way a soldier walks toward high ground, because from there you can finally see the whole battlefield of your own mind instead of stumbling through it blind. That is not withdrawal, that is reconnaissance. Phase 2 is understanding why you feel exhausted after conversations that leave everyone else energized. This is not a flaw in your personality. This is the cost of running a second program in the background of every interaction. While other people simply enjoy a conversation, you are simultaneously auditing it, cross-referencing tone against words, body language against intention, timing against motive. In behavioral psychology, this tendency is often labeled heightened social monitoring, and whether or not it carries an official name, the cost of it is real, and it is expensive. Every smile you evaluate for sincerity, every compliment you scan for a hidden edge of envy, every laugh you check against the eyes that did not quite join it, these cost mental fuel that other people never spend at all. You are not antisocial. You are running background analysis that most brains never bother to run, and the invoice for that analysis is fatigue, even in a room full of people who supposedly care about you. This is exactly why emptiness can exist inside a crowded room. It is not about the number of people around you. It is about the ratio of energy spent performing connection versus energy spent receiving it. When that ratio breaks, the room becomes a stage rather than a shelter, and you start looking for the exit before the second act even begins. If this is starting to feel less like a personality flaw and more like a system you can finally control, that is exactly the point where most people quietly close the tab and forget everything they just heard. Do not be most people. The armor only holds if you keep sharpening it, and the simplest way to keep sharpening it is to stay in range of information like this instead of wandering back into the noise unprotected. Subscribe now, not because I am asking you to, but because forgetting this protocol in a week costs you nothing less than the clarity you just built. But identifying the noise was only the first half of the protocol. The real shift happens the moment you change what you are even measuring. Phase 3 is a full replacement of the criteria you use to measure a relationship. Most people measure connection by head count. How many people know your name? How many people show up to your birthday? How many people would call themselves your friend if a stranger asked? That metric is a trap dressed up as a compliment because it rewards width and punishes depth. The moment you switch the question from how many people know me to who actually understands me, the size of your circle collapses, and that collapse is not a loss. It is a filtration system finally doing its job. Honesty and depth cannot survive at scale. The wider a circle gets, the the shallower it has to become to hold its own weight, and you are simply refusing to keep paying rent on relationships built on nothing but proximity and habit. This is where pattern recognition becomes your permanent shield, and once it activates, you cannot switch it off again. The friend who only appears when they need a favor. The compliment that arrives 1 second too late, wrapped in a tone that does not quite match the words. The smile that stops at the mouth and never reaches the eyes. Once your brain has been trained to catalog these signals, it stops seeing isolated moments and starts reading the whole matrix of unspoken rules other people play by. This is not paranoia. This is the same skill any negotiator, therapist, or interrogator spends years building on purpose, except your life handed it to you for free through repetition and pain. The advantage is permanent. The only decision left is whether you deploy this shield to protect yourself or holster it out of guilt for seeing too clearly. Here is where behavioral physics enters the protocol. Every relationship you maintain is an investment, and every investment demands a return. When you keep paying attention, energy, and time into a connection that returns nothing but static, confusion, and quiet exhaustion, you're not being loyal. You're financing your own depletion. Cutting that investment is not cruelty. It is simply refusing to keep paying a toxic person's bill with your own nervous system. None of this is about becoming cold toward everyone. It is about becoming selectively warm, deliberately generous with your energy instead of recklessly generous with it. Real assertiveness, the kind taught in serious communication training, has never meant pushing people away. It means stating your boundary once, clearly, without apology, and then observing who respects it and who tests it. The people who test it disqualify themselves. The people who respect it earn a permanent place inside a much smaller, much safer circle. So when you notice yourself pulling back from the group chat, skipping the party you used to force yourself to attend, preferring your own company over performing for a room that never truly saw you, do not panic and label yourself broken. You are not disappearing from life. You are disappearing from a version of life that was never actually yours, one built on other people's expectations of who you should be at any given moment. Underneath that disappearance is a much sharper alignment, one where your days start belonging to the person actually living them. Confidence. Real confidence was never meant to be built on applause. It was always meant to be built on self-respect, on the quiet certainty that you know exactly who you are, even when no one is clapping. The moment you stop needing a crowd to confirm your worth is the exact moment the crowd loses its power over you. Keep the armor on. Keep the clarity sharp. And never again let anyone convince you that seeing the truth is the same thing as losing your way. Do not let them pull your strings.